Hi, everyone, and welcome to ChatGPT in the classroom and on making AI work for you. My name is Elena Gray, and I'm excited to be here presenting to you all today. So first things first is we want to have a conversation about our own thoughts and feelings about AI and ChatGPT. We all have our own biases on AI that we have developed over the course of the last few years. So please get with your department on the poster paper in front of you, write down your thoughts and feelings about AI and ChatGPT use in schools. This can be in full sentences, simple words, emotions, drawings, etc. Please take 5 minutes to do so with your group. If you are with us virtually, then please pause this video and take 5 minutes to do so on your own. Once we're done with groups, we will then move on to sharing as a large group to see what everyone's thoughts and feelings are. So the reason that we are discussing AI today, we have quite a few reasons, but the largest one is that ChatGPT and AI are not going away. In fact, they are becoming more and more pervasive throughout our society and in schools. And it's better to learn how it can help us and when we can use it, rather than attempting to stick our heads in the sand and assume that someday this will all go away. Better to be aware of the technology than not. So our goals, our learning objectives for today, we have two of them right here. So our first is given a teacher persona in ChatGPT. Participants will be able to generate an effective lesson plan. This one is specifically to help teachers and to learn how ChatGPT can help you specifically rather than focus on the students. Our second objective, looking at by the end of the workshop, hopefully participants will be able to identify and incorporate effective methods of what we're going to call AI proofing assessments into their coursework. One of our main concerns as educators is the overuse of ChatGPT in assignments. So rather than focus on moving everything offline and not using any technology at all, let's figure out new ways how to build assignments and assessments so that we are not fighting ChatGPT at every turn. For our agenda today, we've already completed our introduction about how we really feel about AI. We're going to move into what is ChatGPT, looking at the basics, looking at the pros and cons of using AI. And then we're going to move into creating lesson plans and making AI work for you. We'll do some modeling here as well before you will have your chance to independently practice creating your own lesson plans and assessments. After a brief reflection, we will move into creating these AI-proof assignments and what that means for your classroom. Again, giving you the time to independently practice and reflect before we have our final thoughts, reflections, and resources that we will go through as well. So looking at what is ChatGPT, it is a large language generative AI model. That is a lot of words in a row. Essentially, what ChatGPT does is it collects human work from a large amount of databases and it learns from human work. And the goal is to think like a person. So it is trained to create new data. That's what generative means. And so it engages you in conversation to produce results based on what you are putting into the system. So it's not like Google where you type in one thing and it spits out results that have already been created. ChatGPT creates new, which is what is interesting about it and what helps us out for more creative projects like lesson planning. So looking at the pros and cons of ChatGPT, as educators, I feel that we tend to focus on the cons, and we'll get there in a moment, but I think it is good to look at some of the positives that can come with using ChatGPT as well. It can reduce your cognitive workload, so we won't be as worried about developing materials and all of the logistics and the nitty-gritty of teaching. We can focus on delivering our actual lessons because ChatGPT is taking some of that workload off. It allows us to expand possibilities and creativity in lesson planning, giving us ideas that maybe we haven't thought of before. Maybe we've been stuck in a rut with our old lessons, and this will help us move forward. It also saves time. So instead of spending hours and hours debating on lessons, coming up with new assignments, etc., we can do it in now about 10 to 15 minutes, take a little bit of a load off, have more time during our planning periods. It can create organizers, worksheets, give you some prompts, give you some real life examples. Rather than trying to search the internet for appropriate ones, you can throw them into ChatGPT and then edit as needed. ChatGPT also allows for scaffolding and differentiation as long as you are entering those into your prompts as you keep having this ongoing conversation with ChatGPT. It can also generate multiple versions of assessments. So going back to that idea of differentiation, especially for kids with IEPs and 504s, that would be really helpful. In terms of our cons, now one thing to keep in mind is that ChatGPT is not always factual. It will actually hallucinate, is what it's called. It will create sources that don't actually exist. And that is something to bring up with students as well, which we will get into later in the workshop. But be aware that you will need to provide your own resources because ChatGPT is not always reliable in that regard. It also will not necessarily choose or sort standards for you. Again, it will hallucinate. It will allow you to unpack complex standards, but you should be entering in the standards that you need for each lesson, assessment, etc. It also does not have subject-specific expertise. That is where you come in. And it also will not respond to student needs, it will not provide links to materials. All of these things are going back to ChatGPT is giving us a framework, if you will, giving us ideas on what to use for materials. Us as educators will need to be the ones filling in the blanks on the historical processes or the math formulas, etc., and ensuring that those things are correct. There is also a baked-in bias with ChatGPT. Again, it is a large language learner model, so it is taking in all of this human work in order to learn from it, and humans ourselves are naturally biased. So one thing to keep in mind is that it will have some of those baked-in biases that are natural in humans as well, so bear that in mind as you're going through. The final con I will say is environmental impact. It takes a gargantuan amount of water and energy to run ChatGPT's databases. So that is also another thing to bear in mind on whether or not you plan to use ChatGPT in the future. One quote that I really appreciated from Cindy Blackburn is that experts using AI tend to see an increase in their skills, while novices see a reduction in those skills. So as all educators here are experts in our field, this will help us build and expand on our typical skill set, while students who are not experts might see a reduction in critical thinking, which is why we have the two separate sections of this workshop today. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of it and actually create a lesson plan. Before we even start, I'm going to bring your attention to this little quote that I have down at the bottom. ChatGPT is a great first draft. It is not the final copy, and it definitely should not be. You as an educator know better than anyone what needs to be in your lesson. So use it to help kickstart, use it to give yourself ideas, but don't necessarily assume that it is the end-all be-all. So in terms of creating lesson plans, it's relatively simple to create a lesson plan in ChatGPT. First, you will need to create an account. The link is right here at chat.openai.com. There is an option for a free account and paid account. The free account works just fine. I would not recommend the paid account for educators. And there are two important steps here. The first is that you need to create a persona. Now, a persona is essentially you setting the tone and boundaries of what this ChatGPT bot is supposed to be. You want ChatGPT to reflect who you are in the classroom so that it will spit out lesson plans, assessments, etc. that reflect your teaching. Now I have an example that's up here on the screen of a school librarian. So if you are a school librarian for grades 7 through 12, you believe that students should become effective digital citizens by following the ISTE standards. You believe that all students have a right to access all information, as well as a right to an inclusive, safe space in the library, and you will use this persona throughout the chat as we interact. Wait for the next prompt. And you can see that the response from ChatGPT was, got it, I'm ready when you are, just send the prompt. Now, obviously, not all of you are school librarians that are in here. Your personas are going to change. So, for example, you might say you are a math teacher for 8th grade algebra, for example. And then you can go into what your specific approach is in teaching. How is your classroom set up? Are you someone that follows the Madeline Miller School of Lesson Plans? Are you a constructivist educator? Are you someone that prefers lectures? And then you will ask them to use this persona throughout the chat and then wait for the next prompt as you go. And we will model that momentarily a little bit further. Next, you will be entering in your initial prompt. So what are you looking for? And the most important tip that I can give in this regard is to be specific. The more clear and specific that you are, the more content that you, or in context, that you include, the better the prompts are that you are going to receive back. And then the next step is to refine those prompts. This is not just a one-stop shop. You are going to want to go back and forth between them. So let's take a moment and actually look at how this would work in real time. So we're in ChatGPT right now. This is the account that I currently have with ChatGPT. And so first things first is we are going to set up a persona. So I'm going to use something that is familiar to me. And I'm going to say that you are a 10th grade social studies teacher. You you use the New York State framework to guide your lessons. You are I can spell, constructivist educator who believes that students should use a variety of methods, primary sources, and skills to learn history. You will use this persona throughout the chat and then wait for the next prompt. Great. So you can see all of the different things that is coming into here, etc., which is fantastic. Also keep in mind over here you can see that it is archiving the chats as well, so you'll be able to share, to archive, etc. I recommend downloading this so that it's something that you remember to go back and see so that you don't just forget whatever happened, right? So let's say that we are trying to plan a lesson here and it's the start of the school year. I'm not sure what to do, but I do know that we have absolute monarchs coming up. And I know that I don't want to just sit and lecture at the students. So what I'm going to say is develop a project that helps students understand the similarities and differences between Louis the 14th divine absolute rule and the Tokugawa shogunate. So we immediately have a project that comes up, right? I'm making sure that I'm being specific in terms of my content. I'm looking at, okay, this is the skill that I want students to learn as well. And then we can go from here. So we have our initial project title. You can see the overview, the standards alignment, and then it gets into the actual project steps. So we have a launch activity, the research phase, primary sources, and you might notice that as you're going through, as I said again, it's not providing any of these primary sources or these links, etc. These are things that you would need to find on your own. So all these edicts, diaries, etc. Again, you would have to go through and take a look. And we have these guiding questions as well. We have a comparative workshop and then a museum exhibit creation. And then an exhibit day as well with an assessment rubric. So here, this is where you might want to focus. And you might say, create an assessment rubric for the museum exhibit in the project. And we'll let that load in. And then sometimes it'll come up with suggestions on its own. So student-friendly checklist version. So I would absolutely want that. So yes, please create the student-friendly checklist. So as you can see, there are a lot of options here, which is fantastic. So this was very specifically for one project. Let's say you wanted to create something like a scope and sequence for your entire unit, or a unit plan, if you will. So maybe you say, create a unit plan for the world at 1750 based on the New York State framework. We're just going to go entirely in a new direction. So our unit objections, we have our suggested pacing. Now this is quite a bit more than I am able to do. So again, being specific is important here, right? So let's say it comes out with something like this and you realize that this is far too much. I know for my own self, I can only spend about 2 weeks on this, and I should have said that. So I might need to say, I only have 2 weeks for this unit. Please rewrite accordingly. I don't know if you need to say please to ChatGPT, but I feel rude if I don't. So that's how that tends to happen. So again, you have your pacing and activities a little bit on smaller scale to help with that, etc. So hopefully this helps in terms of learning how to use ChatGPT. So what we're going to do is we are going to take the next, let's say 15 minutes for all of you to individually go through and test out ChatGPT for yourselves and building assessments, lesson plans, etc. I will be walking around to help folks and answer any questions that you might have. And in the meantime, those of you that are with us online, please take the time as well to go and explore ChatGPT on your own. And there will be a second video to follow up for the second half of this workshop. I'll see you soon.